Okay. This week's Torah portion is called Mishpatim, literally means laws, which makes sense. Last week, we went through the Ten Commandments. We got the Torah at Mount Sinai. So now the laws are going to be given over. Not all the laws were spoken out at Mount Sinai. The entire Torah was given over from Mount Sinai, given from God, right? God's wisdom was brought down into this world. And then we got to learn all the mitzvahs. We got to learn all the laws. We got to learn the whole Torah. So this week's Torah portion has from not the most, I don't believe it's the most, but it has from the most mitzvahs of any portion. I highly recommend, as always, I always recommend reading it, but it's amazing to see the flow and the variety of mitzvahs and which areas they talk about. It's all over the place. And it's, I mean, it's very informative. Just to do a cursory reading is very informative just to get a feel for, wow, I didn't know that mitzvah existed. That's so interesting. What are the details of that mitzvah? I'd love to learn more about that. When in general, in the yeshiva world, when they first start learning Talmud, a lot of the law, one of the main parts of the Talmud they'll study is the part that's discussed a lot in this week's Torah portion. They discuss the part of damages, the laws of, civil court, basically. This my car, got this classic in the snow, right? Someone's car slides and bumps into somebody else. They were driving too fast, and so on and so forth. You left your shovel in the middle of the street, middle of the sidewalk. Somebody steps on it and breaks it, or they get hurt and they break it, right? So all these kinds of simple laws, right? Just simple scenarios are all discussed in this week's Torah portion. Most famously, I think people just because I don't know why it's become such a thing, but eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's in this week's Torah portion, and so on and so forth. All kinds of amazing mitzvahs are in there. I want to point one mitzvah out. We'll probably, if we have time, we'll get to more than one. But one of the mitzvahs that really is unique and special is there's a mitzvah. I wish I thought I had a chumash up here. I don't have a chumash up here. But the mitzvah says like this, that if somebody has an animal that, let's say, it was torn apart by, or it got damaged by a wolf, right? Let's say a lamb that was, grazing out in the prairie, and along comes a wolf and they attack the lamb. Okay, tap the sheep, whatever it is. Now you'll say, wait, okay, this sheep is going to die. So you know what? I might as well let me go ahead and ritually slaughter it. I'll do the shechita, I'll do the slaughtering, and then I'll be look, this animal's not good for anything else. It's going to die anyways. So I'll go ahead and I'll slaughter it, and then I'll be able to eat it. Perfect. I'll save it. In general, when it comes to an animal like that gets torn apart like that, or an animal that you slaughter it, after we slaughter an animal, in general, we slaughter the animal, then we go ahead and check its innards to make sure that it didn't have any blemishes. So there's a mitzvah that says that if you have an animal, you find an animal that has a blemish, you're supposed to go ahead and give it to the dogs. The dogs are supposed to get it. Why? Why the dogs? So Rashi points out that we give it to the dogs because we're paying them back for what they did for the Jewish people when we were leaving Egypt. Usually when you walk by dogs, right, especially 3 million people walk by dogs, they will sit there the whole time yelping and barking and scaring people, and on purpose or not on purpose, whatever it might be. Sorry, Moose, and sorry, Tiger, right? Right? So they'd be barking away, which would make it a pretty unpleasant experience, right, to walk by, especially, I don't know that the Jews had time for pets when they were in Egypt. Maybe they had like pet frogs or something like that. I don't know. But, right, they didn't have. So the Torah tells us that almost as a reward for the dog's behavior, when the Jewish people left Egypt, God says, we're going to go ahead and we're going to give, whenever you have an animal that's called a treifa, an animal that was not an animal, it was a kosher type of animal, but it had some sort of blemish, some sort of wound that wasn't going to allow it to live for more than a year, right? So, or live at all. So then you give that to the dog. So I think it's an amazing mitzvah. Right, it's a mitzvah. It's literally a mitzvah in the Torah. You have an animal that got torn up by the wolves. Go ahead and give it to the dogs. What an amazing thing, right? That's a mitzvah inside the Torah. So obviously, the concept of we're going to reward the dogs for not barking, like
So
I
where is
mean,
the blemish? So once they start to try to ritually slaughter the
so
animal,
yeah.
where's the blemish?
So when I mean, there's the whole area of law that talks about what kind of wounds or what kind of illnesses an animal can have to still be considered a kosher, like kosher to eat. That's a whole separate area of halacha. But the verse in this week's Torah portion talks about if you have an animal that got hurt, whatever it might be, hit by a car, attacked by wolves, or it didn't, you couldn't see it from the outside, but you slaughter it, and then you look and we check the innards and see what kind of illnesses it had, whatever it might be. Any of those kinds of things that would make it that it's not allowed to be eaten by from a kosher standpoint, right? Even though it's a kosher animal, but it has this wound, so therefore it's not considered to it's still considered to be kosher. So what you're supposed to do with it is you're supposed to give it to you're supposed to throw it to the dogs, literally, and that's a reward for the dog's behavior. So this bringing this out, I think it's so phenomenal, right? People think about mitzvah, think about Torah and its mitzvahs and being either archaic or so out there and so like what. No, there's a real calculation over here. It's amazing, right? Yes, there's reward and punishment for things that we do, and there's merits, and the things that are done don't, nothing is for naught. And I think there's a lot of beautiful ideas that can be brought out just from this amazing mitzvah, right? I just think it's a great example. It's also a great example of the concept that Hashem gave us lots of mitzvos. Why? So that we can get reward. Like, what an interesting mitzvah to give us. But guess what? Hashem gave us 613 mitzvos, so there's lots of opportunities to connect to Him, to connect to our Judaism, to connect to the Torah, to connect to each other, right? To create a society that's dependent on each other, right? That we grow together, we live together, right? So I just think this is an example of the structure, of the opportunities, right? Of what mitzvos, of what the Judaism can bring into our lives. I was talking to a few different people this week. It came up numerous times. There's this concept out there that like Torah observance or right, religious life, following the mitzvos, is like that's for like the rabbis, like the leaders of the community, right? That's not for the average layman, right? Lay person. Okay, if you want to do something holy, you could do some mitzvos. No. The mitzvos are for everybody. Doesn't matter, right? If you're the rabbi or not the rabbi, right? It doesn't matter. It's everybody's Torah. As you see, you go through these laws that it pertains to everybody. It's not like okay, so if I want to, oh yeah, the rabbi does that, but that's not that doesn't really apply to me, right? So there's that concept out there. If you look at the variety of mitzvahs in this week's Torah portion, you'll see that it's all kinds of mitzvahs, and they pertain to all different aspects of life and all different kinds of things, and it's really something phenomenal. It's a beautiful thing to look at. I'll throw one more idea real quick at you, and I'll probably write about this in the email. I saw a beautiful idea today. Isn't it? This I may actually have the verses over here. 1 second, hold on. This I might have the verses around. You can still see me? Can you still see me?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, great. So the verse says like this. The verse says, when you see the donkey of someone you hate or an enemy crouching or being crushed under its load, you should go ahead and help take off the load, right? Or to say it a little bit differently, would you refrain from helping it? Rather, you must help the person, even if it's your enemy. So what's going on over here? You're walking down the street, you see that guy that you can't stand, right? And his car is being crushed by the amount of stuff that he put in it, or it's covered in snow, right? And you're like, do I really have to help that guy? I can't stand that guy. I'm not helping him. And you keep on walking. If you keep on walking and don't help the guy or help the guy out, that is a sin. The verse specifically says, if you see the animal of your enemy that is being crushed by its load, you need to go help them. Obviously, there's details involved with the mitzvahs. What exactly this is a scenario. He has to also help you unload it. If he decides to sit down and grab a smoke while he watches you unload the animal, that's not your problem. Then he's being some nice words and about that fellow who's sitting there like that, right? So you don't have an obligation in that scenario, but it's something phenomenal. It seems so simple, but it's not so simple, because if we think about it, we might know some people or don't think about specific people, but I think in our world today, we're so in our own space, especially if it's somebody who I don't like. There's no way I'm helping that guy out, right? But we're not even getting involved with like, oh, the donkey component, or the donkey's getting crushed, or the animal's getting crushed. Of course, that's a separate mitzvah, right? You got to help out the animal, right? The animal is in pain. You got to help out the animal. But we're talking about seeing this guy in a tough situation, right? Help the man out. What I don't care, says the Torah. I don't care, says Hashem. I don't care how much you hate that guy. You got to help him out. And I think this is just another example. One other verse, right? There's two verses we've mentioned tonight, right? It's phenomenal. It's so beautiful, right? It creates such a wonderful structure for our lives and for what's going on in the world and what a society should look like, right?
Is it a double mitzvah if you really can't stand the person and you stop to help them anyway? Yes. Is there some consideration for that?
When we say, just as God is merciful, we should be merciful, right? When it comes to the moments of judgment, God might say, you were willing to go out of your comfort zone and take care of that guy. I'll help you out. I'll tip that scale for you. So it's just an example. There's literally two verses out of I think it's 100+ verses in the portion of just examples of. I'll end off with one more thing. I got to share one more thing, right? Just on the topic of eye for an eye, right? Eye for an eye. If you get a chance to once you start to think about the world of eye for an eye, just from a practical standpoint, okay, let's think about it for a second. A guy goes ahead and he's negligent and he hurts, he hurts some doctor. This doctor was a surgeon, okay? Surgeon. So what's going to happen? We say, hand for a hand. So I say, okay, that's nice. That's really nice. Well, guess what, Karp? Like, my hands are worth millions of dollars. And you're a very nice guy, Karp, and everything. But as much as you might do nice things with your hands, and you might, I don't know, help people move things or something like that, or whatever it is, right? Your hands are not worth millions of dollars, Karp. So I don't, you hurt my hand, it doesn't function anymore. It doesn't make me feel any better or solve the problem in the slightest. The fact that, we'll take off Karp's hand. Great. Right? No, it's not a fair trade. Karp's hand on the market is only worth that much. Dr. So-and-so's hands on the market, right, so to speak, are worth millions. Right? So this is like a Talmudic approach. Analytical approach to start thinking about such a verse. So it can't mean literally we take this guy's hand for that guy's hand, because that is so not the way that you could judge the situation. Dr. So-and-so's hands are worth a lot more than Karp's hands. So that doesn't do anything besides for the fact that, like, oh, great. That's like almost childish. Oh, Karp gave him a boo-boo, so we're going to give Karp a boo-boo back. Right? Right. So this would be something that the Talmud will start to take apart this verse and start to analyze it and to look at it from different angles and start to compare it and contrast and find all kinds of things and say, hey, turn on your brain, start using it. It's okay. You can use your brain, right? We can start thinking about the situation. And it's just like, I just think it's giving it another type of example of one of the mitzvahs in the portion that is begging for us to analyze it, begging for us to, go a little deeper about it. And this is just a small sampling of the depth of Torah, the beauty of Torah, the meaning of Torah, And just it's just a good reminder of we owe it to ourselves to go ahead and delve a little deeper and scratch, keep scratching at that surface and understand what lies between the lines, and all of those kind of the laws of interpretation and all these kinds of things are really a beautiful, amazing thing. And it's a tremendous gift that God gave it to the world, gave it to us at Mount Sinai, and it's ours. And we need to make sure we get a chance to spend some time with it, which we try to do weekly. And our little sessions are just a little glimpse into the depth and the beauty and the magnificence of what God's wisdom has to share with us. So may we merit to allow ourselves to find some extra time to dig a little deeper, search a little deeper, ask the great questions, and let ourselves learn more about what we got, the gifts that we got. All right, everyone should have an awesome Shabbos.
Amazing.
Thoughts, rebuttals, questions?
Yeah, I got one. Are we certain that Rashi got it right, that it was you got to give the meat to the dog, or was it maybe like as in canine, or was it maybe like DAWG, like my dog, like give the meat to my dog,
I mean, it could be. It could be,
I mean, and the same question goes for donkey, or was it maybe like some other word that can be used for donkey,
Well, my opinion about that. I know Eddie Murphy owes the Jewish people a lot of money,
There you go. There you go.
He made a lot of money off that donkey from Shrek, and it really comes from the Torah.
Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah,
we owe him though for coming to America. He did great for the Jewish people in that movie.
So are we equal now?
Barbershop.
All right, everyone have an awesome Shabbos. Great to see you guys.
Great to see you all.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
All right. Don't be scared. Everyone don't be scared to call. My phone works. We don't need to find a time to speak. Don't. All
right.
Holler anytime.
Will do.
All right. Have a great Shabbos. Take care.
All right. Bye.